Hari Hari. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam. Dibya Brindarana Jayatam Shurutor Pangur Mamar Mandar Matiragati Matsarvasha Patam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Dibya Brindaranya Kalpa Drumadna Srimad Ratnagana Singhasana Sto Sri Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prashtali Bi Shabhyamano Shmarami Shriman Rasha Rashambi Bankshi Bata Tatashtita Karshan Venushvanad Gopi Gopinata Shriye Shtunaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivashri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare Gruntir Arambe Kori Mangala Charan Guru Vaishnav Bhagavan Tiner Shmaran Mukham Kardi Vachalam Pangam Mangaite Girim Jat Kripadam Hammande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam. We've been discussing how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the plea of performing a Shraddha ceremony for his father Jagannath Mishra, he journeyed to Gayadam, and there he is just seeing the lotus feet of Sri Madhusudan. Seeing the lotus feet of Sri Madhusudan, he became overwhelmed with ecstatic love of Godhead. Sharva Jaga Tera Bhagye Prabhu Gauru Sundor Prem Bhakti Prakashe Korila Arambo. And at that very moment, the Mahaprabhu's pastimes of Prem Bhakti Prakash, of demonstrating love of God, in the mood of Sri Radhika, those pastimes began. At that time, present was Srila Ishwar Puri Prabhupada, and the previous evening, Srila Ishwar Puri Prabhupada had actually had a dream that he would meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead that very next day. And so he was prepared for the seeing
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, you're on mute, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. We can't hear you, Prabhuji.
So, seeing Ishwar Puri Prabhupada at that time, at that very moment, seeing Ishwar Puri Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at that time, he explained, he established in his own pastimes, he established the conclusions of Krishna consciousness, the conclusions of Krishna consciousness. Vedesh Jasa Sarve Aham Eva Vedyo, Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, that loving me, that understanding me, achieving me, that is the purpose of all the Vedic rituals and procedures. And Krishna explains that the ultimate conclusion, he comes, Dharma Shankshtarpanataya, Dharma Shankshtapanataya Shambhavami Juga. He appears, speaks Bhagavad Gita. What is that? Sarva Dharmam Puri Jagamamekang Sharanam Braja. Just surrender unto me, awaken love for me, develop your love for me. In the Bhagavad, that's confirmed. Savai Punksha Paradharmo. The ultimate, the Paradharma, the highest duty for Shavai Punksha, for all beings, Jato Bhakti Adhokshaje, is that by which one develops love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and devotional service, and the developing love for Krishna that fulfills all one's duties in this life. Simply by developing love for Krishna, that fulfills all one's duties in life. That's explained by Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna Shraddha Sabdhe Vishwash Kohe Shudrida Nishchoy. Actual faith means Krishna Bhakti Koile Sharva Karma Krita Hoy. If you do Krishna Bhakti, And sarva karma kritaya, all responsibilities, all duties are fulfilled just by loving Krishna, just by serving Krishna. So upon seeing Srila Ishwar Puri Prabhupada, Mahaprabhu explained, he was explaining how coming here to Gayadam and performing the various ritualistic ceremonies, the Shraddha, offering of Pinda to the forefathers, that those I mentioned in previous sessions, that we visited Gayadam on a couple of occasions, and the temple administration there were very much appreciative of the foreign devotees, the ISKCON foreign devotees, and they facilitated us in many ways. And we were able to perform the Shraddha ceremony for the departed ancestors. We saw in the visitors book there in Gayadam, we saw in the visitors book, they showed us, they were happy to show us the signature of His Holiness Srila Jai Potaka Shami Guru Maharaj, who had visited there on a previous occasion with the safari devotees. So we went to Gayadam and we performed the Shraddha ceremony, and the priests, they inquire from you, who are the respective forefathers that you desire to liberate in the procedure, in the performance of the Shraddha ceremony, and you write down the names. And during the procedures, the priests, they mention the names of those various departed ancestors, and they receive the benefits of the ceremony as being performed. And Mahaprabhu is explaining that those who are mentioned, those who the object of those performances are performed for, they receive the benefit. But Mahaprabhu said this simply by saying you Tomar Darshan Matri, Tomar Darshan Kebal Matro, Koti Pitrigon, Shekone Sharabanda by Bimochon, Tomar Dekli E Matro, just by seeing you, Tomar Dekli E Matro, Koti Pitrigan, just by seeing you, Koti Pitrigon, Koti, 10 million. 10 million. You can imagine having listed 10 million names of all of those people. I mean, but just by seeing you, Tomar Dekle Ye Matro, Koti Pitrigon, Shekhone, at that very moment, when I saw you, your darshan, Shekhone Sharva Bondha by Bimochon, they were delivered from all bondage just by seeing you. In this way, Mahaprabhu, he established the actual principles of Krishna Bhakti. This is the highest duty, is to awakening love of God. And Mahaprabhu, he, at that time, he requested Srila Ishwar Puri Prabhupada to kindly be merciful and bestow upon him the initiation, the Diksha mantra. And Ishwar Puri Prabhupada here agreed, of course, considering himself highly fortunate to be able to have such a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he awarded Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a 10-syllable Gayatri Gopal mantra. Those who are second initiated in ISKCON will understand these types of mantras, which are chanted privately, confidential mantras. So he was awarded a mantra like that, and also he was given the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra by Ishwar Puri Prabhupada. And at that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he began chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra as been instructed by Ishwar Puri Prabhupada. In fact, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we're reading from Chaitanya Bhagavad, and in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is a complementary literature written by Kaviraj Goswami to provide some additional information, in addition to the information that the authorized biographer of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, has given us in the Chaitanya Bhagavad. Krishna Lila Bhagavate Kohe Ved Vyas Chaitanya Lila Vyas Vrindavan Das, Kaviraj Goswami explaining Vrindavan Das Thakur, the authorized biographer. And he's Kaviraj Goswami personally giving some additional information. So he's explaining that during the interaction, the meeting between Ishwar Puri Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya in Gayadam, at that time, Ishwar Puri explained that Murka Tumi Tomar Nahika Vaidanta Adhikar, you're a fool, and you have no capacity, Adhikar, Vedanta Adhikar, to study the Vedanta. Krishna Nam Japa Shara E Mantra Shar. Chant the holy name of Krishna constantly, a mantra shah. This is the essence of all the Vedic mantras. This is a mantra shah, the cream. Therefore, it's called Mahamantra. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Gaya Dham, when he was in East Bengal, Faridpur, excuse me one moment. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, in explaining to the principles of his movement, of his agenda, that you could say foundational principles of his very appearance, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was explaining to Tapan Mishra Prabhu at that time. Mahaprabhu was explaining that Shuno Mishra Kali Juga Nahi Tapa Jogya Jai John Krishna Bhaji Shay Mahabhagya. Oh, listen, Mishra, in Kali Juga Nahi Tapa Jogya. There's no need of performing different types of austerities and sacrifices and ceremonies as such. Jai John Krishna Bhaje Shay Mahabhagya, the one who chants the holy name of Krishna, he is the most fortunate. Shay Mahabhagya, he attains all of the benefits of all of the different karma kanda procedures just by chanting Hare Krishna. That's also confirmed in the Bhagavad, in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the second chapter of the first canto, Shinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. Just by Shravan Kirtan, hearing and chanting about Krishna, just like here. Many of you have assembled in front of your respective gadgets this morning. And why have you done that? You're doing that. We're not just gossiping about what we did last night or what we're going to have for breakfast or what we had for breakfast, like what most people place on their Facebook page. But actually what we are discussing, we're hearing about Krishna. We're hearing the Bhagavad, hearing Chaitanya Bhagavad. Mono diye shunobai Sri Chaitanya Kota Bhakti Shange Jai Jai Lila Koilo Jota Jota. Oh, brothers and sisters, listen attentively to the descriptions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, Chaitanya Kota, Bhakti Shange, along with his devotees, Jai Jai Lila Koilo Jota Jota. Those pastimes he performed one after another as they were performed, he's describing. So by hearing, by listening, actually we don't require to do any other. We can attain complete perfection, complete love of Godhead just by hearing, just by this process of hearing. Prabonadi Shuddha Chitte Koraya Udoy, just fundamentally by hearing. In fact, this is the most important anga of the items of sadhana bhakti. Shrabonadi, fundamentally by hearing. Shrabonadi, Shuddha Chitte, one's heart becomes purified. Koraya Udoy, and the Udoy means awakening of the love and that dormant love of God. It becomes awakened just by the hearing process. Hearing the Mahamantra, chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and hearing the discussions of the Krishna Katha. And associating with Vaishnavas of the five, out of all the Choishati Shadhananga, 64 items of sadhana bhakti, Srila Rupa Goswami, he particularly recommends 5 items. Shadu Shanga, in the beginning one, the first one is associating with devotees. Shadu Shanga Nam Kirtan, Bhagavat Shravan, Maturava Srimurti Shadaya Sheban. Shako Shadan Shrestha, E Pach Anga, Krishna Prem Janmaya, E Pache Alpashanga. Krishna Prema Janmaya, there will be awakening of Krishna Prem, E Pache Alpashanga, even by a slight performance of these 5 activities, even a slight performance. And what are those 5 activities? The first one is sadhusanga, Nam Kirtan, chanting Hare Krishna, Bhagavat Sravan, hearing the Bhagavat. Now we're listening to the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Bhagavat Sravan Maturavas, living in the Holy Dham, and Sri Murtira Shradaya Sheban, worshipping the Murti, worshipping the deity of the Lord. Now, all of these activities can be performed at home. Even before you take initiation, still you can begin to mold your life around these 5 activities. or particularly 4 of them, Sadhu Sangha, associating with devotees, visit the temple, or join the online Sanghas. Sadhu Sangha, Nam Kirtan, chant Hare Krishna with your friends and relatives at home, chant Hare Krishna, chant on the Japamala. Sadhu Sangha, Nam Kirtan, Bhagavat Sravan, read Srila Prabhupada's books, and attend the lectures which are given by the authorized teachers of Krishna consciousness, Bhagavat Shravan. If it's possible, Mathurabas, live in the Holy Dham or visit the Holy Dham. But even if you can't live in the Holy Dham, make your house atmosphere of Vrindavan by installing the Krishnas, the pictures of Krishna, the pictures of the Vaishnavas. Mathurabas, Sri Murtira Shraddaya Sheban, and worship the deity of the Lord. Now, you don't necessarily have to have a deity, you can worship the picture. Just like Prabhupada began this movement in 1966 in New York City, he sat in the storefront of the 2nd Avenue, New York First ISKCON Center, and he began the classes on Bhagavad Gita, 3 classes a week. And he had the picture, he had one of the devotees, he carried with him his own published Srimad Bhagavatams, and he had the published Chaitanya Charitamrita, published from Bagh Bazaar, Kolkata, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mat. And in that, there was a picture of the Panchatattva, and Prabhupada showed that to one of his disciples, Jadurani Devidasi, who was an artist, and he requested her to paint a large picture of the Panchatattva. And Prabhupada would worship that picture. He would do the arti. He would ring he had a bell. He would ring the bell. He would offer incense, and he would bow down in front of all the people, the guests who would come. He would bow down to the Panchatattva picture, and he would offer the bhoga, apple, and the distribute. So Prabhupada, from his personal example, is showing that if you have a deity, that's wonderful. Have some reasonably regulated program of service. Or you can have pictures, and the pictures, they can be worshipped even occasionally, even in not at that standard of daily doing the worships. And you can sometimes do. Still, you'll get the benefit. And gradually you can increase according to your capacity. So Mahaprabhu, he was explaining that just by seeing Ishvara Puri, just by seeing Tomar Dekli E Matro, Tomar Dekli E Matro, Matro means exclusively, nothing else was required. Tomar Dekli E Matro, Koti Pitrigon, 10 million ancestors or forefathers, Koti Pitrigon, Shekhone, at that very moment, Sharva Bhonda, Pai Vimochan, they were delivered from all bondage just by seeing you. So in his most chamatkar, in his most extraordinary Lila, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches the world the principles of Bhagavad Bhakti. So Lord Chaitanya, Vishwambar, Dvijamani, he began chanting the mantras that were given to him by his spiritual master, and then he was experiencing the awakening of love of God. Of course, this is Lila, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself is that Krishna, the Swayam Bhagavan, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anna. But in order to teach us the life of a devotional service and the power of Bhagavad Bhakti, of practicing devotional service, then he personally demonstrated these changes in his life. And upon chanting the mantra, like he experienced the overwhelming feelings of love of God. And then he was remaining in Gayadam for some period of time. He had a little apartment there. He was cooking, we heard. He cooked for Ishwara Puri Prabhupada. And he returned after following the sadhana and the instructions of his guru for some time. He returned to Ishwara Puri with a question. Kiba mantra dilo goshai. Kiba tarbal jopati mantra karyale pagal. Kiba mantra dilo goshai. Oh, Swamiji, Master Goshai, what mantra? Kiba mantra dilo, what mantra have you given me? Kibatar ball, what is its power? Jopati mantra, Korile pagal. Having chanted this mantra again and again, I've become like a crazy person. Jopati mantra, Korile pagal. Hearing this, Ishwara Puri Prabhupada, he was very happy. He was very happy. Balo hoilo paile tumi param purushata tama pramete yami koilan kritata. You've pleased me greatly by Bailo Param Purushata, attaining the highest goal of life, attaining love of God. You've pleased me so much. And he answered the question, Kiba mantra dila, what mantra have you given me? Ishwar Puri Prabhupada answered that question, Hare Krishna Mahamantra Jaito Shabhav, the very essence, the Shabhav, the fundamental meaning, the very product of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Shabhav, its constitutional essence is that Jai Jape Hare Krishna Upajaye Bhav. Jai Jape, whoever chants Hare Krishna, Tare, for them, Upajaye, there is eruption, there is awakening, Upajaye, Krishna Bhav, feelings of attraction to Krishna, feelings of love to Krishna. And then Ishwar Puri went on to further instruct Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to nache, gao, bhakti shange, goro sankirtan, to dance, nache, gao, to sing, bhakti shange, in association of the devotees, koro sankirtan, perform sankirtan yajna. Krishnanama Upadeshi Tara Shardavajan, and in addition to performing the Shank, or by this actually, this could be understood in this verse can be understood in that way that Nache Gao Bhakti Shange Goro Sankirtan, by dancing, by singing Nache Gao Bhakti Shange in association of the devotees, Goro Sankirtan, by this activity, Krishnanam Upadeshi, Dada Shardabhajan, you deliver all people in the teachings of Krishna consciousness, Krishna Nam, and the glories of Krishna Nam, by demonstrating yourself. And Mahaprabhu, he demonstrated himself, and he also empowered his confidential servants like Srila Haridas Thakur to preach the glories of the holy name, Ramananda Roy, Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Sanatana Goswami. They're all great preachers who expounded the glories of the holy name. And in this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he fulfilled the orders of his spiritual master. Now, after some days of chanting in this way in Gayadam, Mahaprabhu, he felt so overwhelmed with love of Godhead that he lost interest in returning to Mayapur. And he was at that time, in the middle of the night, he got up and he began journeying for Vrindavan, just wanting to take complete shelter of the lotus feet of Nanda Dulal at Vrindavan. Now, on the path, after some distance, Kotu Durjayate Shune Dibabani. Having gone some distance on the path, Shunin Dibabani, he heard a transcendental sound from the sky. Ekoni Matura na Jaiba Dvijamani. Now, Ekoni Matura na Jaiba Dvijamani. Oh, Dvijamani, now you will not go to Mathura. And then we were commenting how extraordinary that is, the way in which Mahaprabhu makes a decision in his life. It's so enchanting. He gets the sounds from the sky no, don't go in that direction, turn back and go in this direction. It's so extraordinary. His life is so sweet, so fascinating, so attractive, such transcendental leelas. And the Divyabani, the transcendental sound in the sky, gave further information that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just see Mahaprabhu's experiencing as a result of following the instructions of his guru, Ishwar Puri. He received such a transformation in consciousness that he's so much in love with Krishna. He is that Krishna, but he's so much in the mood of the devotee loving Krishna that he forgets he's Krishna. He's so much absorbed in love for Krishna, he forgets he's Krishna. Just like Jasoda, Ma Jasoda, she's chastising Jasoda Dulal, having broken the yogurt pots and distributed the yogurt to all the monkeys. She's chasing him with a stick. Muhu shasha kamba chirya kanta kanta. Jashoda bhiyo lukada davamanam. Jasoda bhiya, he's afraid of Ma Jasoda. He doesn't think, hey, I'm God. She can't do anything with this stick. Jashoda bhiyo dukala davamanam. He's running away out of fear of Mother Jasoda. Muhushashakampa, his lips are quivering. Muhushashakampa, Chirya Kanta Kante, the three lines on his neck are quivering as he's crying with the short breath. The short breath is a child crying out of fear of Mother Yasoda. So iti driksalilabi anandakundeshwa gosham nimajanta makyapayantam. Why is this so? Because he's fulfilling the desire of his devotees who want to serve him in this way, as the cowherd boy, as the beloved child, as the young baby, as the cowherd boyfriend, as their beloved in the groves of Vrindavan. He's fulfilling their desires. And so he's not acting as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he completely forgets. Prabhupada comments in this connection that Prabhupada was in a drama, one drama, when he was in college at the Scottish Church College. He was in a drama group, and the director was a famous dramatist in Kolkata, actually. And they'd practice for a year. They'd rehearse for a year, and then they'd perform Mahaprabhu's Leela. Prabhupada, he performed the role of Advaita Acharya. And Prabhupada comments in this connection that to be a good actor, one has to actually forget who he actually is, at least his assumed identity in this world, and whatever that false identification might be. We don't really know who we are in eternal identity, but we have a temporary identification. But that has to be forgotten, and one has to assume 100% the identity of the person that one is acting, the performance. Prabhupada says the best actor, they forget who they are and they actually become that person. So he's explaining this he's describing this to explain Mahaprabhu's consciousness, that he forgot that he's God. He's so much in the mood of a devotee, and the voice from the sky had to remind him, no, there's so many things you have to do. You're God. You have to go back. You have to establish the Sankirtan movement. Shuno Shuno Nityananda, Shuno Haridas. You have to order Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur to begin preaching. Prati Gore Gore Giye Koro Epika. Bhaja Krishna. Shuno Shuno Nityananda, Shuno Haridas Shabatra Amaraga Koro Prakash. And my instructions, oh Nityananda, oh Haridas, my instructions have to be propagated in all places. Sabatana Amaraga Koro Prakash. Shuno Shuno Nityananda Shuno Haridas. Prati Gore Gore Giye Koro Epika. Bhaja Krishna Bola Krishna Koro Krishna Shikha. All of these important components of Mahaprabhu's mission had to be fulfilled in Mayapur, his holy dham. Had to deliver Jagai and Madai, had to incorporate the Sankirtan movement, had to instruct the devotees, had to demonstrate so many things. So in this way, Mahaprabhu, he took heed of that Divyabani, those transcendental messages coming from the sky, and he returned to Mayapur. Now we were hearing the last couple of sessions about Mahaprabhu's returning to Mayapur and the extraordinary change that had come over him. It became all of the news in Mayapur. At first, the devotees like Sriman Pandit. Sriman Pandit was the younger brother of Srivas Thakur, Sriman Pandit. He had heard that Vishwambar and Navadip Chandra had returned from Gaya Dham, and so he went in the evening to Sachi Angan, to the house of Sachi Devi, and there he saw Vishwambar was overwhelmed with love of God, and Srila Vrindavan Thakur describes that Parda Pada Loite Matronam Pada Pada Loite Matronam Noyone Jole Shah Punno Hoilostan. Just by saying the name of Pada Laite Matronam, just by saying Pada, remembering and saying that place of Gayadam, Pada Laite Matronam, Noyone Jole, the tears from his eyes, Shobunno Hoilostan, it filled the whole garden, the whole place became flooded with tears of love of God as a result of Navadip Chandra simply uttering the name Pada. So he saw this, and he was the next morning. He had gathered in the courtyard of Srivas Thakur. Ek kunda gachache Srivas Mondire kunda rupe ki bakalpataru avatare. Vrindavan Thakur is describing that in Srivas Thakur's house, Ek kunda gacha ache, there is a kunda, a kunda, a jasmine tree, a small bush. Et kunda gacha che shribas mundire. Kunda rupe, although it's assumed the form of a kunda tree, kunda rupe kiba kolpotadu abatare. Actually, it's an incarnation of a kolpotadu, a desire-fulfilling tree from the spiritual world. And so this jasmine tree, just see the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Everything about them is so extraordinary. Even here, where in Mayapur, there's a kunda tree everywhere. There's flower trees everywhere, but still, there's disputes over collecting flowers here in Mayapur. In the morning time, you see devotees going here and there, and the trees and the bushes are stripped of flowers every morning. You have to get up very early if you're here and there on the pathways. I noticed our ISKCON Mayapur management built some new roads from the Ishodhan Bhavan to the Shaki Nibas, actually Tarampur Road. A nice new road they built, and they put speed traps, and very nice. Congratulations. We're very much appreciative of that. I'll use it every day. And on the sides of the roads, they planted fruit and flower trees. How wonderful. Mango trees and champa trees and jasmine trees. So very nice to see. But even so, in Mayapur here, sometimes there's different disputes over flower collecting. But in Mahaprabhu's Leela, there's one tree. It gave flowers all year round, and it never exhausted. As many devotees came to pick flowers, that tree, it simply provided beautiful kunda trees. So you can imagine how popular that tree was. So this is the way the devotees, they would associate with each other every morning, picking flowers. We just kind of like, was it social networking, and we're on the, seeing what everyone's doing. It's a whole, I was giving this session in the Bengali language the other evening, and I was sharing how in my very life, how I've seen society change so much. It's such dramatic changes in social behavior. Even in my life, I've seen that when I was young, I lived in Australia, Melbourne, Australia. Of course, it was my great fortune that I was born in the city that Prabhupada visited 4 or 5 times. And Prabhupada installed deities there in Melbourne, just 20 minutes from where I lived. I didn't see Prabhupada, but I was alive. I was 12. I think I was 10 years old when Prabhupada installed deities in Melbourne. I was 10 years old. And certainly I was affected by Prabhupada's presence in that city. And Prabhupada, after installing the deities of Gauranga Nitai in Melbourne, Mahaprabhu Mandir, he sat on the Vyasa and he said that the people of Melbourne have become fortunate because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared here. So I was fortunate to appear in that city where Prabhupada personally preached and established deities. And in any case, we were a family there. We had, in Australia, the lifestyle is different to India. In India, everyone lives in apartments in the city, in a 10-story apartment building. In Australia, everyone lives in homes, their own home, what in India is called a bungalow. In Australia, all the families, everyone has that, some land and a house and a garden and all the way around. And some people have big homes, but most people have a home like that. And so we had a home. I had 6 brothers and sisters, had vehicles, we had television. We were one of the first families to get a color television. So in any case, I'm explaining that we used to, as a family, we used to gather every evening and at 6 p.m. and watch the news. We'd bring the family together. We'd sit and watch the news. And that was a daily practice. And then sometimes watch something on the television. Even that has changed so much that people don't even do that anymore now. The family, maybe they come together for a meal. But even if they do, the still people bring their phone to the meal. And now it's a standard. You have to, nowadays, life means having a conversation with somebody. Excuse me for a moment. social interaction is such that nowadays, even if you're with someone and you're having a conversation with them, they have their phone in their hand, and suddenly they just stop and they just start responding to a post, and it's like you don't exist anymore. And it's a standard accepted behavior. People just stop and they respond. And the environment that we live in now is that actually you're constantly associating with all your friends all the time, all your friends, and even more your circle. It's friends and a whole bunch of other people, close friends and acquaintances. They're all just mixed in together, and basically you're chatting with them all the time, 24 hours a day. You're constantly chatting with them. How that has affected people's minds and consciousness. People don't even realize, they don't do research on how that affects the consciousness and the mentality, that you're constantly chatting with all of your friends and acquaintances all the time. Constantly you're hearing. It's like such a heightened environment of Gramya Kotha, the current affairs. This what's called gossip. Just whatever comes into people's mind, they're chit-chatting and typing, and how that has absorbed the consciousness of people. And actually, of course, we use that for Krishna consciousness as well. But in general, people, they just, whatever mundane things are on their mind, they broadcast, and everyone has to be attentive to it. And then you throw in your mundane things, and it's changed people's thinking processes so dramatically. That but we don't think about these things. We just keep the phone charged up and keep online all the time. And this is how it has changed social interaction so dramatically. People just are not aware of it. Anyway, in Mahaprabhu's Leela, the devotees would gather in the morning around that Kundagach, Kundagachache Srivash Mondire, Kundarupe Kibakalpatoru Avatare. So beautiful. I can't resist memorizing verses from the Chaitanya Bhagavad and Chaitanya Charitamrita. I apologize if it's too much, but I'm addicted, because it is so beautiful. Because compared to our own words, the words of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur are so beautiful. And the way he describes, especially if you understand a little bit of the Bengali language, the way he describes the pastimes, it's just so exquisite. It's so beautiful. It melts the heart. It's such beautiful language. How can one resist not constantly repeating these verses? So I apologize if it's too much, but this is what you have to deal with in my class. So the devotees would gather around the Kunda Gach in Sribash Angan and courtyard of Sribash Thakur, and then they would discuss whatever news. Now that very next morning, Sriman Pandit, he came, and he was so enlivened, so jubilant. The devotees asked, "Oh, you're so happy today. Well, what is it?" Well, so yes, certainly there's a reason. Well, tell us the reason. Then listen. Parnama Adbhut Kotha Maha Shambhav Nimai Pandit Hoilo Parama Vaishnav Parama Adbhut Kotha, the most amazing news, the most astonishing news, the most Adbhut, the most astonishing Parama Adbhut Kotha Maha Shambhav. The impossible has been fulfilled. Maha Ashambhav. Nimai Pandit Hoilo, Parama Vaishnav, Maha Ashambhav, because the devotees were always thinking about this. They're always desiring that there is eternal associates. Even when he was in the Vidya Leela, still they're always desiring that he joined them in the Sankirtan Podi. So join them in performing Sankirtan. So quickly the news spread that Nimai was overwhelmed with tears of love of God, and Pada Padda Tirte was that Loite Matronam, just by calling, he's explaining. Sriman's explaining what he saw. Pada Padda Tirta, Loite Matronam, just by uttering the name of Pada Padda Tirta, Noyane Chale, Unno Hoilostan, the whole place became flooded with tears of love of God. So news of this quickly spread. And Nimai, even in the class, he began giving his class, and it was very difficult for him. He was constantly uttering the name of Krishna and discussing Krishna consciousness. And the students, they went and complained to his teacher, Gangadas Pandit. They complained to him that Nimai Pandit, he's after returning from Gaya, he's a changed person, and he's just constantly speaking about Krishna and Vrindavan and loving Krishna and the names of Krishna. And so hearing this, Gangadas Pandit, he gave some instruction. He called Nimai and gave some instruction, and Nimai, he accepted that. He accepted the instructions of Gangadas Pandit. He's explaining how by your mercy, no one can stand before me in an argument in all of Navadip, all of Odiya. And certainly you are my well-wisher. And he accepted the instruction. And again, as he was going to the Ganga with his students that afternoon after visiting Gangadas Pandit, he was going to the Ganga. Then they were passing the cottage of one great Vaishnava named Ratnagarbha Acharya. Now, Ratnagarbha Acharya, he was very fond of Srimad Bhagavatam, and at that very time, he was sitting in his doorstep, just like you see in Bengal oftentimes in the villages, even though the houses are sometimes made of tin and parts of trees, even though the corner is a tree, and they build a house around a tree that's just growing out of I saw on many occasions. Still, even though the house, it may be a little bit, as I say, kacha, not paka, not a brick house, but still in the front, they have an area there where people can sit in the front, a little area, I think in South India also, a little like a veranda in the area, in the front door, and people can sit there, and so people can come and they don't necessarily have to come inside the house. You can greet guests and spend time with them just sitting in that little front porch area. So he was sitting there and he was reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So the verse that he happened to be reading was the verse from the Krishna book. You'll find it, the Krishna and Balama approached the wives of the Yajik Brahmins. And they'd approached the Brahmins for prasadam, and the Brahmins refused to give any prasadam. And then they went back to Krishna and Balaram, and then they said, go and ask the wives of the Brahmins. So the wives of the Brahmins, certainly they were eager to give prasadam to Krishna and Balaram. And they said, well, we're not sending a parcel, we're going personally to deliver. And then they went in, the cowherd boys, they went into the forests of Braj on the banks of the Jamuna, and there they saw Krishna. And just this very verse, Ratnagarbha Acharya was reading, that the wives of the Yajik Brahmins, they saw the young cowherd boy whose complexion was darkish, and he wore a yellowish cloth, and he wore a nicely decorated garland around his neck with a peacock feather slanted slightly out of his crown. And he stood with his friends, and his left hand was resting on the shoulder of his friend, and his right hand was twirling a beautiful lotus flower. And his ears are decorated with beautiful sharp-shaped lotus flower earrings, and his cheeks decorated with decorative designs of sandal paste, and he had a sweet smile playing on his lotus mouth. So hearing this verse that was being read by Ratnagarbha Acharya, hearing this verse, when the words of Srimad Bhagavatam entered into the ears of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhaktir Prabhab Matro, Shunila, Takiya, Shekhone, Porilen, Bhumite, Hoya. Bhakti Prabhab, by the power of that devotion of that Ratnagarbha Acharya who is reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Prabhab Matro. Matro means just that, just by hearing that verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Prabhab Matro. Tunila Takiya, hearing that verse, Shekhone, at that very moment, Porilen, Bhumite Hoya, he fell down on the ground unconscious. Mahaprabhu fell down on the ground, just hearing that verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So unconscious for a while, then Mahaprabhu, he regained his external consciousness, and he spoke to that Brahmin, Prabhu bole, bolo bolo, bole, biprabha. I'm reading from text, by the way, 308 of Madhya Khanda Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, 304, Madhya Khanda Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, chapter 1. Prabhu bolo bole biprabha utila shamudra Krishna shuka manoha. The whole atmosphere, shamudra Krishna shuka manoha, had become like a enchanting ocean of happiness, enchanting, Manohar Krishna Shuk, with happiness of Krishna consciousness. And the Lord was crying in such emotions of love of Godhead that the whole area there became flooded with his tears and his shivering and the hair standing on end. So everyone was totally astounded seeing this, all of the students and the other people that were gathered there. And Mahaprabhu, he embraced that Brahmin. He ran and he embraced that Brahmin, Ratnagarbha Acharya. Paya Vaikuntha Nathe Alingon Prem Purna Ratnagarbha Hoilo Takon. When he was embraced, Paya Vaikuntha Nayak Alingam, when he was embraced by the Vaikuntha Nayak, then Ratnagarbha Acharya Prem Purna Ratnagarbha Hoilo Takon. He became overwhelmed with love of Godhead at that very moment, being embraced by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Ratnagarbha Acharya, he clasped the lotus feet of the Lord, and all of the people many people had come, and after seeing Mahaprabhu demonstrating these ecstatic symptoms, that had attracted the attention of many people, and all of the people were completely amazed at the sight. So then Mahaprabhu, he carried on with his students to the Ganga. Ganga Namaskar, Ganga Chal Niyashide, paying obeisance, having come to the bank of the Ganga, Mahaprabhu pays the obeisances to the Ganga. Ganga Namaskar Kori, Ganga Namaskar Kori, Ganga Jal Niyashide, taking a Ganga Jal on his head. We know that actually I was preparing a course some years ago. I think I taught that course in Mangalore, actually, preparing a course on the Vaishnav culture. And we were discussing in that course about bathing in the Ganga. If you're not close to the Ganga and you can't bathe in the Ganga, but at least when you take bath, if you chant Ganga, Ganga, that's as good as bathing in the Ganga. So I was discussing with His Holiness Shola Ajaya Pataka Swami Guru Maharaj about some aspects of that course. And he was very much imperative about the devotees doing this when they go to the Ganga, that they pay obeisances and they put the Ganga Jal on their head. In fact, although Maharaj was somewhat incapacitated in his wheelchair, but he was showing me like this. I remember it clearly. He was showing me they put the Ganga Jal on his head. So very interesting to see how much that was emphasized by His Holiness when we were discussing different aspects of that Vaishnav culture course. So here Mahaprabhu, even though he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, he's showing his respect to Ma Ganga in order to teach us. Ganga Namaskar Kori, Ganga Jal Niye Shide, paying obeisances to the Ganga and taking the Ganga on his head. Goshti Shahite Boshila Ganga Tire, taking his students with him, he sat on the banks of the Ganga to give his class. Just like Krishna would sit on the banks of the Jamuna with his associate cowherd boys and take a picnic and look after the cows, so in the same way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sit on the banks of the Ganga with his students and give his lessons there. So then Mahaprabhu, he began giving the class, and when the students inquired what's the definition of dhatu, or verbal root, Mahaprabhu says that that's Krishna's energy, that Krishna dwells in the body of every living entity, and the active principle is Krishna. And the purpose of life is simply to develop devotion for him alone. And Mahaprabhu is beginning to preach. Even though the topic of the class is grammar and other aspects of Sanskrit, he's simply preaching to the students all the time. He begins his preaching them. This is text number 336 of chapter 1. Bolo Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Shuno Krishna Nam, Aha Nisha, Krishna Charan Koro Dhyan. Bolo Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. That's Bolo Krishna, Bhaja Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna, worship Krishna, Shuno Krishna Nam, hear Krishna's name. Aha Nisha, day and night, Aha Nisha. Sri Krishna Charan, the lotus feet of Krishna Koro Dhyan. Remember the lotus feet of Krishna day and night. And he's preaching to the boys that worship Ananda Nandan, the deliverer of Agasur, Bakasur, and Putana, that while serving the lotus feet of Krishna, Lord Shiva, he goes about naked, completely overwhelmed. Take straw between your teeth and worship Krishna, whose lotus feet are glorified by Ananta. As long as there is life and strength in your body, worship Krishna. Krishna Mata, Krishna Pita, Krishna Prana Dhan, Charane Doriya Boli, Charane Doriya Boli, Charane Doriya Boli, I'm clasping your feet. Charane Doriya Boli, clasping your feet, I request you, Krishna Deho Mon, give your mind to Krishna, become Krishna conscious. Krishna Mata, Krishna is your mother. Krishna Pita, Krishna is your father. Krishna Prana Dhan, Krishna is your life and wealth. So in this way, Mahaprabhu's class, it went on and on and on and on for many hours. Even the topic originally was the dhatu, verbal root, and Mahaprabhu was preaching and preaching Krishna consciousness to his students for hours and hours. Sutra, Briti, Tikai, back on Krishna Matro, all of the explanations of the sutras, of the commentaries, and the other aspects of the grammar. Krishna Matro, simply Mahaprabhu discussed Krishna's name. Bujite Tama Bhakya Kebo Ache Patro. Mahaprabhu, after his class, he inquired, he came to external consciousness and he inquired, how was my discussion on the verbal roots today? How was my discussion on the verbal roots today? And the students replied, Sutra Briti Tikai, all of the commentaries, all of the sub-commentaries, and all the explanations back on Krishna Matra. You simply discuss the name of Krishna. Bujte tomar bhakya keho ache patra. Who has the ability to understand your commentaries? The students replied to Mahaprabhu's question. Jai Kampa Jai Asru Jai Pulak Tomar. The quivering, the horripilation, Jai Pulak, the hair standing on end. Amrata Kotai Kobo Nahadeki. We've never seen such things. We accompanied you to the bank of the Ganga yesterday, and then you heard one Brahmin reciting the sloka from the Bhagavatam, Bhagavat Shlok Shuni, Hoilo Murchita. Hearing that sloka, you fell unconscious. Sharva Ange Nahi Pran Amar Bishmito. It seemed that there was no life left in all of your limbs, and we became completely astonished. You were shivering so uncontrollably that 100 men could not hold you still. And you lay upon the ground as if a golden statue covered by dust. Apurva, Bhabaye, Shab, Deke, Shabjan, seeing Shabjan, all of the people there, seeing your Apurva Bhab, these extraordinary symptoms. Apurva Bhabe, Shab, Deki, Jota John, all of the people who saw your extraordinary symptoms, Shabai Balen A Purush Narayan. Seeing that, everyone was simply concluded, this person is Narayan. So in this way, Goshundara, after returning from Gayadam, he attempts to carry on with his classes, but he's unable to. And the subsequent interaction with his students at this point, what happened subsequently, we will discuss on the next call, on the next meeting, which will be next Sunday at this time, at the same time. So are there any questions on the topics of today?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the class. Yes, Mukesh Prabhu, you can unmute. Hare Krishna.
Yes, I have unmuted. Prabhuji, I have one question. We are discussing on the importance of the Gayadham, and we are also, a part of our discussion was also covering the Pindadan offer at Gayadham. Correct, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
So now I have a question that when you select any priest for offering the Pindadan of your father or your forefather or anyone, then what happens? The priest asks you the list of names from your father's side, your ancestor, father, forefather, his father like that. You're all ancestors. Suppose you have missed out on few names, then he will cover all the names by saying some, I don't know, 2-3 things which I don't remember. One thing is this can be understood because we are going at Gayadam. Gayadam is a place for carrying out the Pitru Sraddh. Am I right, Prabhuji?
Yes.
And Sidhpur is a place to offer the Matru Sraddh. Now they are asking at Gaya place, that Pitru Sraddh place, the names from your mother's side also. The ancestor, the father of your mother, his forefather, ancestors, and likewise those who have missed out the names also. They ask you all the names. They go further one step below.
So
and
what's
they
the
ask
question
name-
today? What's the question today?
The question today, that all these liberated souls, what you name in front of this priest, are they really getting the liberation from Krishna, who is responsible from giving the liberation? That is the question.
Well, Mukesh, if there's some doubt, actually better to you practice Krishna consciousness and do all the activities of Krishna consciousness, because then there'll be no doubt about their liberation. But we don't know these days, of course, that in Kali Yuga, Mahaprabhu is explaining that these types of ceremonies, they may not be as effective because the purity of the Brahmins and the procedures and everything, it's therefore Mahaprabhu, again and again, we hear that the process for this age is chanting Hare Krishna. Murka Tumi Tomar Nahika Vedanta Adika Krishna Nam Japa, a mantra shah, just by chanting Hare Krishna. Then one that delivers all forefathers. That's explained in many places. In the Bhagavat, Devashi Bhutapta Pitrinam Kinkaram, Devashi Bhutapta Pitrinam Kinkaram, Na Kinkara Nayam Nicharajam. All of the debts we have to the Devas, the Rishis, Bhutapta, relatives, friends, people in general, ancestors, Pitrinam, ancestors, Na Kinkara Nayam Nicharajam. We have debts to all of them. Savatmana Ya Sharanyam, one who surrenders to the lotus feet of Mukunda, Savat Sharanam Mukunda Tadbrita, then one becomes relieved of all of these debts just by developing Krishna consciousness. So the best thing to do for the welfare of all of your departed ancestors, the best thing to do is to become serious in Krishna consciousness, to regularly chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, to offer your bhoga to Krishna, and ultimately to take initiation in the Sampradaya coming from Srila Prabhupada. And in this way, by practicing Krishna consciousness, you're guaranteed to do the welfare and deliver all of your ancestors. That's the guaranteed way, become Krishna conscious. Now there's a question here. There was a question about drama. What happened to that question? There was a question. Okay, Adi Dev has got a question.
Prabhu, you can unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, or Pradams.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, you mentioned that after when the Mahaprabhu heard the words of Srimad Bhagavatam read by Ratnagarma Acharya, he fell unconscious and then he embraced Ratnagarma Acharya and he said to say more. So after that, what happened? Prabhu, did Ratnagarma Acharya like read more? Like, after that, what happened?
There's a little bit more, yeah. Mahaprabhu asked him to carry on reading. I mean, I didn't read every verse, but there's more there. Mahaprabhu asked him to carry on reading for some time. And then Mahaprabhu, along with his students, they went to the Ganga, and then Mahaprabhu paid obeisances to the Ganga and took the jol on his head and sat down and began to give the class. But at that time, he was unable to give the class. He was simply so absorbed in Krishna consciousness. He was constantly chanting about Krishna and Krishna's glories. And in this way, he went on for hours and hours and hours.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, I don't have any doubt. I don't have any doubts about Krishna giving liberations. I don't have any doubts. It is all clear that, yeah, Krishna is only giving liberations. But does all the name which has been spoken out amongst us in front of the priest, does all this soul get liberated? That is my question, Prabhuji.
That question, we don't have to answer that question. We're not expert in the procedures of performing Shraddha and the Karma Kanda procedures. We're not expert, nor do we claim to be. So if you want more information on those processes, you can seek seek the answers elsewhere. We're discussing about Krishna consciousness here and how to practice Krishna consciousness. And that is the best way, guaranteed way, to do benefit for all of your forefathers. So that's the answer. So there's a question here, how useful is doing drama? How can we draw inspiration from it? It's useful, as you have mentioned, doing drama in concern of Prabhupada. Yes, of course. Prabhupada would sit, and he liked the dramas so much. Prabhupada would watch the dramas that were performed by his disciples, and he enjoyed so much drama. Mahaprabhu would perform drama. In fact, Mahaprabhu, we'll hear later in the Madhya Kanda Chaitanya Bhagavat, Mahaprabhu would regularly perform drama. He was acting, Mahaprabhu was acting as Lakshmi Devi, Loki Devi. And in the drama, actually Vishnu Priya and Sachi Devi, they're sitting there watching. They couldn't even recognize. He was acting as Lakshmi Devi so wonderfully that Lakshmi Devi herself and Madhya Soda was sitting and they're asking, is that your husband? Is that your Sachi Devi? Is that your husband? They couldn't even recognize. He was acting as Lakshmi Devi so wonderfully. So how? And drama is so nice. We do drama here in Mayapur, and devotees preaching and drama in the early days in the Sankirtan. On the street Sankirtan, the devotees would break into a little street drama on the spot, and about you're not the body and different dramas right there in the street. All the people are walking past. Devotees doing drama on the street in the middle of the Sankirtan. Drama is such a wonderful means of preaching Krishna consciousness. Okay, thank you very much. We look forward to discussing further with you next week.
Thank you,
Krishna-
Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank
Krishna
you.
Bhakti Labho,
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Prabhu.